Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and I'm here with my special guest, Jake Thomas,
Hello.
who did the Tiny Superman videos, and he actually placed second. Isn't that right? You placed second, right?
Second, yeah.
At the Metropolis Film Festival for the Superman celebration. And as our regular listeners know, Vince and I placed third with Jarell as the Godfather. And now you weren't actually at Metropolis.
I was not able to know. I was trying to look into tickets to see if I could fly out for the weekend, but they kind of went a little too high, and it was kind of a last minute splurge if it would have happened, but it wasn't able to happen. So I just kind of sent the video. And what was nice though was Tom, who no Tim Brown, who
Right.
was in charge of Ink Monkey Productions, um, told me because he sent an email out asking people if they were going to come into town
Hmm.
to Metropolis and actually be there for the festival. And I sent him an email saying I wasn't able to go, but he was kind enough to let me know that like I won one of the top awards. And so he asked if I wanted to send a video in as an acceptance speech. So I was able to do that. And so I felt that I was able to participate with the actual festival in some way that way, even though I
Yeah,
wasn't able to go
I
myself.
was wondering about that because I didn't know you were all the way in California.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I haven't lived here all my life. I've only been out here for about 3 years. I'm originally from Ohio,
Oh,
Northeast
okay.
Ohio, and I moved out here after I finished school. But
And
I've been
you're
so
in LA, right?
yeah, in LA. Yeah.
Yeah, that it was funny. I was kind of surprised when they put up your your silly acceptance Tiny Superman video, because I was like, well, I wish I'd known ahead of time because I mean like I only live about 7 hours away from there, and I'm going every year now because I love that festival. But I went
Yeah.
last year, and then but I didn't get a chance to put a video in, so I did it this year,
Hmm.
and but like we had some place to be at like 8 o'clock the next morning
Oh
and
wow.
we hadn't planned to stay for the festival. I mean, we hadn't planned to stay for the film part of it, and
Right.
so we were going to leave about 6 and just drive back to St. Louis, where we were going to stay with my wife's parents, and then go back home.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I wanted to at least introduce myself to Tim, and so I walked up and said hello to him, and he said, I can't wait for the festival. And I said, well, unfortunately, I can't stay for it. And he said, well, if I told you it would be worth your while, would you stay? And I was like, "Oh no!" So we ended up getting like 3 hours of sleep that night, and we had
Excellent.
our I think at that point he was like a month and we had our month and a half baby with us, and
Oh,
it
excellent.
was great. But anyway, so I'm sorry you weren't able to be there because it was a fantastic festival.
Yeah, well, I some people I've seen some folks have taped some of the events and posted it online, so I was able to see like the costume contest, which looked really fun.
I didn't
In
even get
my
to see
opinion.
that. I've
Yeah,
only the last 2 years I've only been able to go for Saturday, and I've missed Sunday. But there's always a lot of costumes on Saturday too.
yeah. I think if you search around, you might be able to find. There are two that really impressed me. Some guy, he must have been a bodybuilder or something because he had a really great steel costume. Yeah,
I don't know if it's the same guy who did it last year, but there was a guy who had one last year, and he looked amazing. And
possibly.
he did two. He did a steel outfit, and then he also did a red tornado outfit, and he wore
Oh
both
yeah,
the same day. It was amazing.
yeah. I've seen pictures of the Red Tornado outfit on the SupermanCelebration.net.
Hmm.
And the other costume that looked really neat was some guy was Doomsday, and he,
Really?
yeah, and he was like on stilts, and because he must have been at least 10 feet tall in the costume. And eventually, when they called him back in to give him a prize, he had to take the top part off, I guess, because it was so hot and heavy
That's
in
amazing.
the weather. But yeah, those looked really neat. And also got to see footage from Noel Neal as they
Hmm.
were uh,
Doing the
unveiling the
statue.
statue. Right.
Yeah, and that was the night before Saturday, I think, and so I missed that also. But
So
I saw the statue, but I didn't get to see that part.
you got to be in town for Saturday.
Yeah, and I
That's
mean, like Saturday is actually the biggest day. Uh,
hmm
but yeah, I like see. I mean, Saturday is the biggest day because that's when they have the celebrities,
right from
and
small and
when they actually talk and everything. Yeah, and this year it was the guy who played Doomsday, and which I guess makes sense that that guy tried to do a Doomsday suit. And then what's that? Sam Witwer, they
Vander.
and then they had Laura Vandervoort. Yeah, and she was fantastic.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And then I always like Saturday also because they do the trivia contest, and I always win like 8 prizes or something.
Nice.
And actually, the guy who runs the trivia contest, because for some reason, I never get my hand up quick enough to actually get up to be one of the contestants. Because like they have contestants, and then they ask audience questions, and whoever actually wins the contest, the prize is actually really quite good. I don't remember what it is, but I mean it's sizable. And for whatever reason, I never get my hand up fast enough for that. But I always win audience prizes, right? So the guy who runs it came up to me, and he was like, he found me at the celebration a couple hours later, and he was like, so next year just walk up to me and I'll put you up on stage because you've done this like 2 years in a row. And it was funny.
What was the prize this year?
I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's money or something. I mean, it's something good, but the audience prizes are always just like t-shirts and stuff.
Oh, that's good. Did you go to the museum?
Yeah, actually, this has been my third time to Metropolis, and the first time I went wasn't during a celebration. I just went down to see the museum.
Yeah.
And I've actually videotaped the museum, and I've never posted that footage, but I probably ought to at some point because I think people would like to see that. But there's actually, I don't know if you know this, but he's got 2 museums. He's got his museum of nothing but Superman stuff, and then he has what he calls his Hollywood Museum, which is it's got a bunch of Justice League stuff in it, but then besides that, it's got a bunch of movie memorabilia and props and stuff from various things.
Nice.
He's got like one of the larger Marilyn Monroe collections there is, and he's got a big Elvis collection, and he's got a lot of horror stuff,
and he's been there for 18 years. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, I've not met him. I've always wanted to interview him, but I just haven't ever been able to work out a time where he and I could both talk.
Well, I saw in an interview that he did that he was talking about when the museum used to travel around the country. And
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, and Kirk Allen, the Superman actor from the 40s series, would make appearances with the museum displays, whatever town they went to, and they were very close friends later in Kirk Allen's life, I think, which sounded like a really kind of neat addition to the exhibit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So now, when did you actually make the Tiny Superman videos?
They were made over the course of several months because, as you said, originally on the way they were shown at the film festival was in one full movie.
Right.
They were originally produced to be a web series, with each episode being somewhere around a minute, really trying not to run too long with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the first 3 actually were all shot in the same afternoon and then edited and kind of released at once, just to kind of gain some interest. And then I was trying to come out with them regularly, like every other week or something.
Right.
And so it was maybe from I think it started about last year around this time in August. And then the last episode, which would have been the end of the movie, was early this March. And actually, I kind of had stalled with the end of it, pretty much up to the point where Tiny Superman moves out and my character Clark is, abducted and held hostage with the bomb ticking. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much all filmed because Tim told me about the Superman Celebration fan film contest. And I realized, I need to do the ending now so I can send this to him.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I think you probably could have just sent the first half and still placed.
True, but there was more story, and I actually liked a lot of the stuff in the second half.
I did too, actually. And I mean, like, not to sit here and critique your thing or do a review of your thing while I'm talking to you, but I think actually it breaks down a little bit better as web episodes as opposed to watching it all together. I think that first half, because I mean, like at Metropolis, we're seeing it as 2 big long episodes, and so looking at it as that, I thought that the first episode was really fun, and then I thought the last 5 minutes kind of dragged. Mm-hmm. And then I thought the second part was perfectly paced.
Yeah. The second, it was just like.
But the problem is that you never actually intended for it to be watched that way.
No, I mean.
It's my assumption anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of usually when I go back and see them, I just watch them all in a row, and I kind of knew it was coming anyway, so I kind of knew everything. But I think it works both ways, because if you watch each one individually, like if you just watch like a minute-long episode, it's amusing, it's funny, and there's some good humor there. And then like the nice thing about if you watch it all together, there's a lot of like callbacks to earlier episodes later on, especially when the Joker shows up. There's a lot of stuff that calls back to like the second or third episode near the end.
Yeah, well, and I really liked the introduction as the Joker as the other roommate just because it was really funny, and I liked the idea that there could be other tiny people in the universe as opposed to just tiny Superman comes out of nowhere and it's like, why is he tiny? What is he? And then like there's other ones and it's like, oh, okay. I guess for some reason I can suspend my disbelief better only because there's more of them. I don't understand that, but no, it was funny, and I don't know why, but I thought that the Joker figure you used made it funnier.
I like that figure. He was hard to find. He was one of those rare ones that was a part of a figure line that they like stopped doing, and so was Superman.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to use any figures. Originally, I was thinking of using one of the Superman Returns Brandon Routh figures that could also change into Clark Kent, so I could have him go back and forth.
Oh, okay.
But I realized that I don't really want this to connect to any like specific version of Superman. It should be just like the generic.
I think you were right to go that way, yeah, because
and so it was the same way with the Joker. So I didn't use any of the Heath Ledger figures that I have, and I didn't use any of the Christian Bale Batmans either.
That's really smart because Heath Ledger is kind of everywhere right now.
Right. And I figure like after like Dark Knight, 10 years from now, you can still maybe watch Tiny Superman and still laugh and not think of it as, oh, this was when Dark Knight came out, I guess.
Yeah. I thought you did a really good job of making it as timeless as you could make it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. It would be because, everybody knows you did a really good job of picking stuff people know about. And I mean, like there's little references that I think that your diehard comic book fans will get better than other people will, but still on the whole, I mean, people know who Superman is, people know who Joker is, and you don't really have your version of Superman making a lot of references to continuities. He's just there and he has similar abilities, but for the most part, he's kind of a different character.
I think he's very different because he's very he's naive, he's over enthusiastic, and will kind of latch on to one idea and take it to its extreme.
He's really full of himself, and my favorite part about him is that he seems to almost not be aware of the fact that he's tiny.
Right, because he's dating larger women.
Larger women.
And working, like this is one of my favorite jokes, just because I didn't want to have bother with doing a special effect of him flying too much, but he gets the job of delivering pizzas, and he's like, I'm going to be the fastest pizza delivery man in the history of the world. And the very next shot, he's asking my character to borrow the car so he can drive the pizzas. And it's like, why do you need a car? For delivering pizzas. Why else?
I like that too. Although it's not that you don't have any special effects at all.
Right. No, I just was trying to, save that for when it was like the best places for it.
Now, a couple of questions just about production things, just because I find these things interesting. I don't know if anybody else does. Did you write the whole thing at once, or did you write it as serialized as it was put out?
That's a good question. What I did was I kind of knew what each episode was about before I did it, and really the only writing I would do would be, I didn't write any of the dialogue out, really. A lot of that was kind of made up in post-production as I was doing the voiceover recording for Tiny Superman, because I was also the voice for him. And any writing beforehand would have simply been a one-sentence description of what the episode was. Like, episode 1, Tiny Superman moves in. Episode 4, Tiny Superman looks for a job.
Oh, so you didn't script the dialogue at all?
Not really, no. I mean, the only thing that I really had scripted out as far as...
You have that in common with Vince.
Right, yeah. I think the only time ever having to work things out would have been beforehand, as soon as other actors came into it. Because then, they had to know what to say, and I had to know what we were looking at and kind of, have a better idea of how the actual scene would play out. But still, one of my favorite ways of shooting is just to kind of, play with it a little and kind of let people improvise and see what works out as a fun dynamic, and then tape that and make sure to include everything that worked. And a good example of that would be the dinner date episode is what you'd call it, or the dinner date section of the movie, because we went to IHOP and we're kind of playing around just while eating dinner, and then taped stuff throughout the course of the evening and then cut it down to what was the funniest, I think.
Jacob, we're coming up on 15 minutes. I'm going to stop this and set us up for a second part.